Now that Sniffy Joe, President Asterisk, is coming to office, we really got to talk about MMT, the modern monetary theory, because it's it's witchcraft, man. There's no other way around that. It's gonna be ugly. The lady who ran the Bernie Sanders Economic Advisory, I think she ran the Senate Democrat Minority Economic Advisory. AOC's Stephanie Kelton. She's a professor of economics at Stony Brook, which I believe is in New York. I'm sure it's a hoity-toity, good time rock and roll school that they don't want our kind there. And she's taking a prominent role in the Democrats, and this is bad. So we got to look. The witchcraft is always alluring at first, until you just really think about it and you start saying, yeah, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. And actually, some of the things with old Kelton and the MMT people, I'm not against necessarily, but the basis of their premise is wrong. Their premise is wrong, and it's going to devastate things if this goes forward. So the basic argument of MMT is that what happens is the money is a government entity, and the use of money, the printing of money, essentially is what allows an economy to function. Essentially, is what they're saying, basically. So without money issued by the government, the economy doesn't operate very well. And then on top of that, by issuing money and having taxes, we're creating a demand for that money, and that demand for that money will keep the money kind of rotating throughout the economy, which creates more and more wealth. Putting the cart before the horse here, my friends. Putting the cart before the horse. So I took some notes here because this is pretty important to understand. The first thing you got to understand is what existed first. Did the economy exist first, or did actual money, in this case we'll just say the US dollar, exist first? Well, the first thing that existed was the economy. All right, that's just a fact. So we had a farmer, and we had a shoe shine guy. All right, the farmer wanted shoes shined. He took a freaking pig down to the guy who shined the shoes, or gave him some bacon, and that's barter. All right, so the guy shined his shoes for bacon, and all that was good. That's an economy. Had nothing to do with the U.S. dollars or Stephanie Kelton with Paul Volcker or anything. Just two people engaging in self-trade, trading of what they valued less, i.e. in this case the farmer had too many pieces of bacon for what he valued more, the shoe shine guy to shine his shoes so he could go to church on Sunday. The shoe shine guy said, I'm happy to shine your shoes because I want the bacon. So he valued the bacon more than his labor to shine the shoes. That is the basic foundation of an economy. It happens without government printing, government intervention. It just happens. All right, so what happens in a free economy is more and more of these transactions begin to take place. More and more of these trades among free people begin to take place. And as such, people do what's called comparative advantage. You dig the ditch, I'll grow the strawberries. You see what I'm saying? So I'm good at digging ditches. You're growing strawberries. You need a ditch dug for your swales. I need some strawberries. We'll exchange labor, and we're both more wealthy because I now have strawberries. You have a ditch, and we both can use that as a trade. It's the way economic activity has always, since the start of mankind, worked. All right, now the problem with that inherently is that it does lead to some inefficiencies in a transaction, in the market. Well, first of all, you got to find and this, I'm not going to read it in this, but if you got to read Carl Menger's Principle of Economics, you got to find a guy who's willing to buy your good, all right, and you got to find a guy who's willing to sell you the good that you want. You got to find two people who are going to make a transaction. So obviously you can go knocking on doors like old-fashioned traveling salesmen, or you can just go to a market, the downtown of marketing. That's what they say. We're going to market. We're going to market our goods. We're going to market to sell our goods. Well, in this case, a lot of times I'm willing to dig the ditch. I don't need the strawberries. In fact, I want blueberries instead. All right, but I don't see the guy selling the blueberries. I only see the guy selling the strawberries. But I'm willing to dig a ditch. So the guy says, look, man, I need a ditch too. I know you don't want strawberries, but let me give you my strawberries. And that way you can trade with somebody else who might be able to find the guy who can trade the blueberries. And this is how indirect exchange happens. So, okay, I'll do that. It's inefficient because I don't want the strawberries, I want the blueberries, but I'm willing to take the strawberries because I think I will be able to find a way to trade those strawberries for blueberries later on down the road. Now that's inefficient, all right? So what happens, and this is where money, the government dictated money, comes into play. The government says, and it doesn't have to be the government. It could be a bank, anything that's legitimate and the community as a whole holds in value and high esteem. The government can say, okay, look, man, we're going to get rid of all that. We like barter's fine, but it's inefficient. What we're going to do is we're going to issue currency that has our good faith on it. That way you know that if I dig a ditch for the strawberry guy, I don't want his strawberries. I have enough strawberries. I'm full of strawberries. The guy says, I won't pay you strawberries. I'm going to pay you government currency. I'm going to pay you $1. So now I got $1. I'm not humping a bunch of strawberries around. I got a dollar bill. Now I can go find a blueberry guy who's selling blueberries. Much more efficient. No one denies that. It's much more efficient. But notice, it isn't the dollar that created the transaction. It isn't. Now, the dollar facilitates transactions. I don't deny that. So a government, or it doesn't have to be, but a value of exchange, in this case, dollar bills that we all agree on has value in it, does facilitate transactions. And the facilitation of transactions helps with economic growth, without question. That's not debatable, in my opinion. All right, so, but you can't just one day wake up as a third-rate country, a banana republic, and say, I'm going to print all this money and go do transactions. It doesn't work like that, man. You can't just say, I'm Manuel Noriega, I'm in Panama, I'm going to print all this money now, go transact, everybody, and create our economy. It doesn't work like that. It has to have the fundamental economic activity to begin with. So what happens with the MMT people is they say, oh, we're just going to print a bunch of money, and that will stimulate demand and create transactions. It's just silly to say that. It's silly because in of itself, they're putting the money before the economic activity, and you can't do that. You got to have the economic activity. So what happens is if this did work that way, then all these third-rate countries would have huge economic activity just by printing and printing and printing. It doesn't. It has to have the fundamental strength of an economy behind it at first, for sure. All right, so let me look at my notes. Let me give you an example of myself. I want a cup of tea, which costs $5. All right, so I want this cup of tea, which costs $5. I am willing to work for $5 so I can buy that cup of tea. All right, so that's, my labor is worth less than this cup of tea. I'm willing to sacrifice my labor in order to get this cup of tea. But you who need that ditch dug, you don't have the tea right there. Instead, you're going to pay me $5. I'm saying I am willing to do that. I am willing to work to get the money in order to buy that cup of tea at a later date. Because I believe that $5 that I earn today, that I'll spend tonight or spend tomorrow or spend a week from now, will still be able to buy me this cup of tea. It's a store of value, all right? I believe that that money will be able to buy me a cup of hot tea. So, but the money didn't buy the tea. It was my labor. Just because I had the $5, that isn't what ultimately bought me the tea. What ultimately bought me the tea was the actions I used to get the money to buy the tea. I hope that makes sense. So the $5 actually, while it allowed me to buy the tea, it isn't what created the $5 in order for me to get the tea to begin with. I had to do something. I had to earn it. And when I earned it, I was able to get the $5 from the employer to buy the cup of hot tea. Now, what happens if just the government says everyone's going to get $5 now? So whoever wanted a cup of hot tea, everyone's going to be able to afford it because everyone's going to get it for $5. Well, the problem, of course, is that the tea, this tea bag right here, is a scarce item. It's limited. There isn't unlimited supply of tea. So because it's a scarce item, the guy who produces the tea, somebody is going to be without. Because either he's going to keep his fee at $5, and the first, let's say he's got 100 tea bags, the first 100 people get it, the next 100 people don't. They're just out of luck. Or he's going to say, yeah, I can charge more because there's such a huge demand. So I'll charge $7.50. And what is that called? So he has two ways to go about this. He can say, okay, I got 100 tea bags. I got 200 people that want the 100 tea bags. They all have $5, which is what I charge. So I can sell 100 tea bags at $5 a pop. I can make $500, all right? Now, 100 people will be without tea. That's a fact. 100 people will be without tea, all right, because I ran out. It's not an unlimited supply. Or I can raise my fee to $7.50. Now, do I think of the 200 people who are willing to pay $5 for the tea, do I think 100 of them will pay $7.50? I'm willing to take that risk. Because even if 90 only pay for that $7.50 tea, I'm still ahead than I was if 100 people bought it for 5. I hope that makes sense. That's hugely important because I have a limited supply. It's a scarce item. So people are going to have to discriminate, or I'm going to discriminate against you. I'm going to say, you don't have 5. I don't want it $5. I want $7.50. And you're like, yeah, I don't want it for $7.50. So I discriminate against you because you're willing to pay 5, but you also discriminate against me because you're not willing to pay $7.50. Now, it could be a risk for me, but if I only got 40 people willing to pay $7.50, well, you have to reduce my prices or I'm going to have to take a loss. But see how that works. So with modern monetary theory, when they're increasing the monetary supply, the money, inherently is going to be leading to more inflation if people use that money to make the purchases that they otherwise would have made with labor or they had to earn it. Now, that's a big if. What if they don't? See, that's a problem. All right, let's keep going. All right, hold on. I got caught. Hold on a second. Part 2 of this. So let's say going back to me digging a ditch for $5 so I could buy this cup of tea. If I knew that cup of tea was going to cost $7.50 in the future, and I only got $5 for digging that ditch, that's not a trade-off for me. I say it's not worth it for me to dig that ditch for $5 because the whole point of me digging that ditch was to get a cup of tea. But now that digging that ditch does not give me the money I need in which to buy that cup of hot tea. So I'm not going to dig that ditch. So what happens in inflation is it contracts the society. It contracts the economy, I should say. I hope that makes sense. So basically I'm saying, look, I'm willing to dig a ditch for $5 in order to buy that cup of hot tea. If everyone has $5 and the guy selling the tea, because it's a scarce item, raises his fee to $7.50, I am not willing to dig that ditch for $5 because now the cup of hot tea is more than the money I'm getting. And so I'm not going to do that. So I'm not going to dig that ditch, which means you're not going to plant that tree, which means you're not going to get apples off that tree, which means you can't sell apples at market, and the economy contracts. It's just basic stuff here, man. The less financial activity, the less economic activity. Now, again, modern monetary theory would say we can stimulate economic activity by giving more money. And they recognize it's inflationary to some degree. But if I don't trust the value of that dollar bill, I'm not going to do the economic activity because it's just not worth it for me to sacrifice my labor in which to go and buy, to not be able to buy the cup of hot tea to begin with. Okay. So I got to trust that store of value. The minute you lose faith in that store of value, I'm telling you, man, the store of value, because remember, that dollar bill, all it is doing is facilitating a transaction. In and of itself, it's not wealth. That dollar bill is not wealth. It's not. All right. The dollar bill just says, I have this ability to buy something with this greenback. If the minute that greenback does not buy what I thought it could, I lose trust in it. As such, I don't do the laborious activity in which to get that money. All right. Giving people more money to increase transactions, to increase wealth. So think about it. We're going to give you money because that'll give you'll buy more things with that money, and that'll increase wealth. Well, there's an easy way to do that, right? Without even having the government print press. Why not just get rid of taxes? I mean, literally, if it's that simple to give people money so they increase the transactions, increase the demand, stimulate the economy, and thus increase wealth, just don't have no taxes, man. None. Now, Stephen Kelton and the folks at MMT school, the left will say, well, we want to tax the rich. Well, okay, you can tax the rich, but if you're making less than $100,000, say no FICA tax, no sales tax, no income tax, obviously, no property tax, because the less taxation, the more money I got, the more transactions I have, the more the economy grows. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, okay, you think just giving people money will create more economic activity. Well, why would you have taxes to begin with? Well, because taxes are a way of control, and that's the ultimate thing. These people want control. All right. Modern monetary theory argues if you increase the money, you increase growth. Again, why can't this happen to every country? That's the whole point. It's like, if you can just increase the money, why can't every single country that does this increase growth? It doesn't work that way. I mean, just look throughout. I mean, just, my goodness. Venezuela, Zimbabwe, Cuba, it does not. Germany, it does not matter. You can't just print your way to prosperity. You can't. You have to have the economic thing. And this is where it gets real kind of dicey here, because if you don't have the economic activity to begin with, all the printing presses in the world are not going to do anything other than ruin the economy. And this is where the MMT people scare me. So let's read this from old Stephanie herself. They just don't understand how money is created. The economy isn't created because of money being created. The economy is created first, and then money comes second. It's like you're putting a cart before the horse. If you say, we're just going to create money, which will help the economy's got to be there. It's got to be strong to begin with. All right, so here's a scary thing. All right, right here. This is where it gets kind of frightening. All right. Outside of World War II, the U.S. this is Stephanie Kelton, the MMT person, is completely Keynesian. Outside of World War II, the U.S. has never sustained anything approximating true full employment. The reason was spelled out by Keynes in his book, The General Theory of Employment. Capitalist economies chronically operate with insufficient aggregate demand. Thus, we print money to increase the demand. That means there's never enough combined spending by public and private combined to induce companies to offer employment for everyone who wants to work. You can come close, and you might even get there during periods of wartime. Again, these people, the destruction creates growth. It's sad, man. It's a broken window fallacy. If you break that window, you're going to create economic activity because they got to replace the window. Well, that's absolutely true, but the problem is now the guy who had a window before and was going to use that money that he did not have to use to replace the window to buy a new suit. Now he doesn't have a suit, so he's just back to where he was, but he's out $250. Crazy. So he could have had a window and a suit. Now he just has a window. All right, yeah, the window guy is loving it, but the tailor, he's like, dude, I was getting ready to sell you a suit. He goes, I can't buy it because I got to get my window replaced. All right. There's always slack. For peacetime economies, they don't operate at full capacity. There's always slack in the form of unemployed resources, including labor. All right, so what would she do here? Let's see. She says, to supplement discretionary fiscal policy, MMT recommends a federal job guarantee, which creates a non-discretionary automatic stabilizer that promotes both full employment and price stability. Full employment and price stability. Okay, price stability means no inflation. How do we do this? The government simply announces a wage and then hires everyone who turns up looking for a job. If no one shows up, it means the economy is already operating at full employment. But if 15 million people show up, it reveals substantial slack. In a real sense, it's the only way to know for sure how substantially the economy is underutilizing available resources. Why does financing have to come from the government? Well, simply because he can't run out of money. All right, so remember, she is saying the government just announces a wage. And if no one shows up, it means the economy is already operating at full employment. But if 15 million people show up, that means 15 million people were underemployed, essentially. Talking about government make work projects, Kelton's MMT would be FDR government on steroids. We're not talking about just creating any old job. No. We're talking more than that. This isn't a make work scheme aimed at simply giving the employee a shovel in order to justify paying them while they're awake. It's a way to enhance the public good while strengthening our communities through a system of shared government. And enhance the public good by strengthening our communities through a system of shared government. The public service jobs would enable us to convert unemployed labor into improved public amenities and facilities of various types. The idea is to test people with useful work that is valued by the community and to provide compensation for that work in the form of a decent wage and benefit package. Never heard that before. Okay, so what would that be? Well, she says it would mean she suggests setting the minimum wage at $15 an hour. This, of course, would mean that no one would take a private sector job for under $15 an hour. Just think of how many employers of low-skilled workers who are paid less than $15 an hour the employers would not even be able to find workers because they're competing against the government who's offering $15. This would shrink the economy and put even more people on the government make work dole. It's even worse than that because people say, I can go work for the government with full benefits at $15 an hour. Why would I freaking, wash dishes at $9 an hour? It doesn't make any sense. I'm not going to do that. So what Stephanie Kelton said, well, the fact That someone showed up for a job at $15 an hour showed that employment was running at full capacity. That's just stupid. And I say, well, $15 an hour, why not $30 an hour? You want to show, I mean, the whole thing is freaking idiotic. You want to show slack in the economy, offer a job at $100 an hour. You're going to get 8,000 million people showing up. Why? Because it shows slack in the economy? There's a underemployment? No, because you're making up a fake wage. So let's look at my man Milton Friedman here. When traveling by car during one of his many overseas travels, Professor Friedman spotted scores of road builders moving earth with shovels instead of modern machinery. Notice that Stephanie Kelton talked about shovels, shovel ready. Remember, shovel ready, that's what Obama said. So she's trying to go against Milton here. But when Milton asked why powerful equipment machines wasn't used instead of so many laborers, his host told him it was to keep employment high in the construction industry. If they used tractors, said the host, road building and equipment, fewer people would have jobs, was his host's logic. Then instead of shovels, why don't you give them spoons and create even more jobs at Friedman? Exactly. And so that's the issue here is we have Stephanie Kelton with not only a significant just silliness and idiotic make work schemes by $15 minimum wage, which is a horrific minimum wage, but then she's going to have the Green New Deal. She's going to have, hold on a second, she's going to have all this just horrible regulations, which are going to hurt the economy. So now she's going to have, her and Sniffy Joe are going to have horrible regulations, more and more regulations, Green New Deal. They're going to tax for the things they don't like. They're going to have huge minimum wage, which is going to put people out of work. No economist argues against this. Not even a liberal economist that argues that a minimum wage kills jobs. Everyone knows that. And then on top of that, they're going to print money. And the reason is because they don't understand what comes first. The strong economy comes first, not the money. The money doesn't create the strong economy. The strong economy is what allows the printing press to go. And the minute that strong economy loses its appeal because of regulation, taxation, even a demographic shift, older people, that not enough people taking too many SJWs and not enough engineers and things of that nature, that economy is not long for this world. And then you're going to have stagflation, low employment, high inflation, no growth. And that's, unfortunately, I kind of think we're going there because these guys they control the keys of the kingdom now. Let's see if I had anything else in here. Some of these things I don't necessarily disagree with her. She bashes NAFTA. NAFTA was a joke. Oh, so what is the inflation target? Because we know that if they print money, if the economy is not growing accordingly, it will be inflationary, as I just proved. I mean, my goodness, if you gave everyone who wants a $5 cup of tea, you gave everyone who wants that the $5 in which to buy the cup of tea, inherently you're going to have scarcity, and scarcity always leads to inflation. So again, somebody is going to be without. You cannot meet all the demand. You can't. So what happens is discriminatory actions take place in the economic discrimination, which is I'm going to raise my prices. I'm going to discriminate against those who only pay me $5. That's inflationary without question. And so when it comes to inflation, what is the inflation target? These guys don't even know. So one guy says 4%. Once they hit 4%, that'd be too high inflation. Stephanie Kelton herself said we're not even sure if we can trust the inflation numbers. We don't know the inflation. You can't really get an inflation gauge for millions of goods that are out there. And then the founder of the MMT school, I think is Wayne Mosser, says I don't even believe in inflation. It's a political entity, not a real one. So it's just scary stuff. So, what do you get? I mean, and of course, as always, get Principles Economics from Carl Menger. I mean, he has a great thing on the origins of money, which I won't get into here, but man, it's kind of what I talked about before. You have a pig, some guy has a cow. You want to trade each other because you have two pigs, the guy has two cows. You find each other. That is an exchange. That's a transaction without question. But you know what happened? You had to have the pig and the cow to begin with. You had to have an economy to begin with. The pig and the cow didn't just show up one day and say, "Here I am, trade me." No, you had to grow it. You had to take a piglet, grow it, feed it. You had to not clothe it, but you had to keep it warm. You had to keep it sheltered. You had to do all this stuff. You had to labor in which to get that pig from a piglet to a real pig that could be slaughtered for bacon. Not dealing with the brightest bunch here, unfortunately. But this is what we're looking at. Don't be allured by the MMT. It's bad economics. It's even worse. It's control. That's what they're looking for. I'd love to hear your thoughts. We'll see you.